Hugh Freezes' comments on Monday may have tipped his hand that a quarterback change is coming.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We are dapping it up with Daryl Dappich, Montgomery radio legend. Quick reaction to what Hugh Freeze said earlier, as well as the Auburn Tigers basketball team ranked number 5 in the country, according to the latest AP poll that came out earlier today. Daryl, you and I were chit-chatting before we clicked record, but what Hugh Freeze said about his quarterbacks is pretty telling, and it could signify that a quarterback change is coming.
Yeah, a lot of people want to dive into what he talks about, the future, and at some point planning and focus on that.
Yeah.
I'm focusing on the elephant in the room, and that is we had heard going into this week, and we kept it quiet, that Payton Thorne was not practicing because of a hurt shoulder.
Yeah.
Hugh Freeze came right out and divulged it in a press conference. So there is an old tradition or an old school tradition in sports that in any level of sports, in professional sports and college sports, you don't divulge the injury to one of your players, potentially a starter, thereby making him vulnerable to the opposing defense. Now, look, it's a football game. You want to win the football game. If you're a defensive coordinator and you know somebody has a sore knee or has a sore shoulder, you make them vulnerable by exposing and revealing where that injury is, because that's where the defender, hate to say it, is going to hit you and aim for. Nothing wrong with that. It's not dirty. It's just if he's vulnerable and he's weak in that particular body part, you're going to go after it. Hugh Freeze revealing that tells me there's no way Payton Thorne's going to play and be exposed to that, because now the defense knows where he's most vulnerable and where he's hurt and would try to capitalize on that.
Yeah, I guess I agree with you, but I guess my argument to that, if I wanted to argue with you, would be to, well, surely when they're watching the tape of Auburn, their most recent action against Vanderbilt, like Payton's on the sideline, like clearly having an agitated shoulder, like that's out there. But the fact of the matter is, him not practicing last week, that's now revealed publicly by Freeze. It's like, oh, this might have been worse than just him tweaking something.
Well, in coaches, sometimes just because what you see on film as an opponent doesn't mean the coach has to admit that in a press conference. A lot of times they'll lie, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're trying to protect the kid's well-being. They'll say, oh, he's got an upper body injury, so that they don't get specific. I mean, that's why you see lower body injury, upper body injury. You don't want to get specific, thereby letting the defense target where he's hurt. So, yes, you're right. He comes off the field flexing his shoulder or limping. You know, if he's limping, it's knee or ankle. If it's shoulder, you know, he's doing this with it. But upper body can mean a lot of different things. And I think that's what they do. They try to get vague so that you don't know what to go after. It shocked me. I mean, even if Payton Thorne's shoulder heals this week to the point where he feels really, really good and can throw effectively, because as a quarterback, that's one of your most important assets is being able to throw. So your shoulder is very important. Let's say he's at 80%, which is good enough for him to play, but it's still not 100%. You're exposing him. I get what you're saying. You're right. Any idiot could look at the film, and if the guy's flexing his shoulder and chicken winging it, but you don't come right out, I guess, and give him the bullseye, right? That's not Daryl talking. That's go back and look at all the injury reports. People will refuse to get specific about where an injury is so you don't expose that person. The fact that he did makes me wonder if he's just not planning on throwing him to the wolves, so to speak, and putting him in jeopardy from an injury standpoint.
Yeah. And then he's asked about Walker White, as he should be. He should be asked about Walker at this point. And he just said, yeah, we gave the threes a chance. They had kind of their own scrimmage towards the end of the week. But to me, like the way he talked about Walker didn't signify any sort of like we considered playing him. Is that the vibe that you got from it?
It is. I think that changes if Auburn starts Hank Brown and they have a really, really good game and go off and get up big in the third or fourth quarter, and they're up, significant. Then I think Walker White plays. I definitely, of course, I thought that against New Mexico, and he never came in the game, or maybe he did late. I don't remember specifically. I think Hank Brown went longer than I expected with that New Mexico lead. If it gets really ugly, I would fully expect Walker White to get some reps because you could still preserve his red shirt.
Yeah. Walker hasn't played yet, right? Am I tripping?
That's what I'm thinking. He hasn't.
Yeah, he is not. Yeah, he hasn't played yet.
So you had
me doubting myself on that. I'm like,
the New Mexico game, he just played the whole game. And I get it. He was trying to give him reps, Hank Brown. But, Hank Brown starts, plays 3 quarters, and Auburn's up 35. It would be foolish, in my opinion, not to give Walker White some reps.
Yeah, and just for context, Holden Geriner played 6 snaps against Alabama A&M and played 7 against New Mexico.
Yeah, that's right. He went with Holden over what? Yeah. So Hank Brown didn't play every snap. It was Holden that came in.
Yeah, played just about all of them though. Played all the relevant snaps for sure. Yeah. For sure. Auburn basketball ranked number 1 in the country in KenPom, but number 5 in the country in today's AP Top 25 poll that rolled out. Our thoughts: is Auburn too high, too low, just right? That's coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, Daryl, you can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Auburn, 24.5-point favorite against ULM. That seems high. That's a lot of points.
It does, and it makes me, I think ULM has lost 3 in a row, and I think that may be wise because they're trending downward.
Yep. So if you feel confident about that one way or the other, or want to check out any of their other virtually unlimited lines over at FanDuel Sportsbook, head over to FanDuel.com. Once again, you can get started with $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. That's over at FanDuel.com. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets, whether it's for football, basketball, baseball, the theater, comedy, doesn't matter what it is. Game Time has you covered. And with the Auburn basketball game coming up this week, Game Time should be they should be ready to rock and roll on your phone.
It should be a couple of those games that are accessible, with it being Kent State and on Wednesday night and then North Alabama on a Monday night. If you want to go see the Tigers, check out Game Time. There should be some good seats available.
Yep. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it?
Game time.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. The Auburn Tigers in the latest AP poll that dropped earlier today, number 5. You predicted 4, I think, in our post game. And Monday morning, a lot of the voters kind of put out their ballots and on their various websites that they write for, and most of them had Auburn at 4. And I'm like, okay, interesting. Kansas at 1, Bama at 2, UConn at 3, Gonzaga at 4, and then you've got Auburn at 5, which Auburn will definitely play Alabama. They could play UConn. Duke is right behind them at 6. They will play Duke this year. Iowa State is right behind them at 7. They will play Iowa State in the coming week. And then you've got Houston at 8, which of course Auburn just beat, knocked them down a little bit, but they'll play Tennessee. They'll play Purdue. Tennessee's 11. Purdue is 13. Arkansas is 18. Kentucky is 19. This is just the schedule. The schedule that Auburn will play this year is insane.
Knew that. First of all, 5's good. I would have, I thought they were going to sneak into the top 4, but 5's Gonzaga struggled with Arizona State yesterday and could have easily been beat. And if they would have gotten beaten, I'm a little surprised that Gonzaga gets a little bit more love for beating a kind of an average Arizona State team by 8 at home. Gonzaga was in their own building than what Auburn did, but I get it. Gonzaga does get a traditional amount of love. So I like where they're at. The non-conference schedule, the key to that is one of the games that we already said was going to be a gauntlet or a death march. Auburn has now gotten under their belt and won. So you're playing with a little bit of house money right now, getting that first one out of the way.
Yeah.
Look, I think we ranked these, and I had this as the second toughest non-conference game behind Duke. When we did that show where we ranked Auburn's non-conference, I think I had this one second, like I said, behind Duke going into Cameron. So, man, that speaks volumes. And so, yeah, they moved up 6 spots. I don't see that them doing anything this week that would jeopardize that with the game against Kent State Wednesday. If somebody in front of them loses, there's a potential for them to get back up into the top 4.
Yeah. I think it's fine. And some of this has to do with just the nature of preseason rankings are dumb. They just are. Like, Auburn's resume is better than anybody's in front of them, but they were ranked 11. And so you can't jump from 11 to 1, 2, or 3. You just can't do it. And so I think Auburn's going to need some help from folks in front of them to move up.
It's my opinion that even had Auburn lost to Houston, and let's say a very close game, if some of those missed opportunities came back to bite Auburn in the butt and they lost by 3, the win over Vermont opened some eyes too with pollsters. A lot of people were expecting that to be a close game. Threw out warning shots. Be careful, Auburn. Don't overlook Vermont. They're a tournament team. They just went on the road, beat UAB. When Auburn absolutely boat raced them by 50 something, if they would have played Houston just close, I still think Auburn would have moved into the top 10. Even if they lost.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I mean, it's college basketball. It's early. We don't know. But Vermont goes on the road and beats UAB in Birmingham. They get pummeled by Auburn. Then they lost at Merrimack on Saturday by 14 points.
Well, so that's bad. That's a bad loss. That's a bad loss. And so maybe that's not as an impressive win as we thought Thursday morning, because Merrimack is, my goodness, I mean, that's not good at all. I mean, the win at UAB is very important, but to lose to Merrimack, I mean, maybe Auburn broke them. I don't know. That's horrible. That's a very bad loss.
Yeah, because there was this assumption of like, okay, well, they're a tournament team. This may be a quad 2 type situation when it's all said and done, and they're not there yet. I'm not saying they can't be, and if they start winning games in their conference later in the year, this win could look better, but I don't think this Vermont team is great. But yeah, like you said, maybe this would be their 3rd road game to start the season, at UAB, at Auburn, at Merrimack. Like, I don't know. But I just think the Vermont win maybe isn't as quality as we thought.
I agree. See, I was so focused on all the other big games Saturday. That one slipped under my radar. Forgot they were playing. If I would have known they lost to Merrimack, which sounds like a Hallmark Christmas movie,
sure,
I would have said no. That win is not that impressive as I thought it was originally.
Yeah, if I told you Santa Claus in Merrimack or Christmas in Merrimack was a movie, would you say yes?
Yes, and I
think I would too.
It's the girl from the small town of Merrimack going to New York City. She comes back to Merrimack to run the family farm. She falls in love with the dude on the farm. They get married, and it's called Romance in Merrimack. They fall in love when they host Vermont in basketball. They go to the game. They go to the game,
and they're so elated that they beat a perennial tournament team by 14 points, that they fall in love.
That there's this common bond that they really start to gel over. Mm-hmm. And she stays home to run the Christmas farm, and he helps her at the Christmas pageant when they declare their love for each other.
Auburn ranked number 5 in the latest AP poll. Daryl, how can people check out everything you've got going on? And if you think that is a real movie, comment down below.
Yes, you can check me out with you Wednesdays and Fridays, Locked on Auburn. We'll be doing a reaction show Wednesday, and then a live one. I'll be hosting your favorite Hallmark, countdown to Christmas on Hallmark now. And then we got the Sunday morning show that'll drop now that Auburn football, we'll be doing that one as well. So covering that from the press box Saturday. So a lot going on this week.
Yep. Hey, be sure to like the video. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. This has been Locked on Auburn.